Well, what a beautiful morning. And I do that. The sun is shining. There's a beautiful blue sky, but there is a little bit of a breeze. So that's why I'm inside here in the barn. The yarn is from the barn this morning, just to keep it nice and tidy. But I'm sure there'll be a few falling in now when they hear me talking. They'll want to see what's going on. It's been a good week, a nice week. I hope everybody else had a good week. The weather very broken. I suppose if everything was normal, people wouldn't mind so much about the weather, but so much is dependent on the weather, like eating out and going places and being outside, the outside summer or the summer outside. So I suppose we are all a bit kind of watching the weather and hoping it's going to die down. But it was beautiful this morning to wake up and know that I could just put on the shorts. And that was it. That'll be it for the day now, hopefully. Kind of a busy weekend. There's somebody calling tomorrow to look at some kid goats. I won't say who's going or who's not going now. We'll have to wait and see, because he's hopefully going to call tomorrow. I have some friends calling. I have something arriving. Not the mobile home. That'll be a big announcement when that's happening, and that should be happening very soon as well. You do have to wait for these things in life. I think things take a long time, whatever. If it's worth waiting for, it is. So you do have to take a while to get it going. But no, it's been good. And as well, things take time, and things takes work as well. You need to be kind of working on it, you know what I mean? You can't just expect things to go the way you want. You can't expect, like, I want a mobile home out here now and not do anything about it. You need to know when is to go, and put, the GoFundMe page, and then the planning, and then the COVID and the restrictions, and then getting there. And now the last bit is the transport, for the moment anyway, for phase one. So none of the girls are coming in. I thought they would. Ruby's away down the field. So goat-wise is good. There's no big news, which is nice actually, because all my paperwork is done. Oh, I did some of the other, the yearlings, the goats above. Yeah, you can definitely see it now. One of them broke out. So I was up there, and I have Honey and Ivy, who I reared. I bought from a huge big farm. He's about 500 or 600 goats. And myself and my niece Katie went up, and my nephew Paddy and my brother-in-law Patsy all went up to buy Holly and Ivy, because we bought them in September. They were born in September. And so I bottle fed them through the winter, and they really are, they'll be like Ruby will be. And it's great. In one sense, it's hard in the other, because they are my shadow, and they have no fear of me whatsoever. They're just around me all the time. And that was great. And I was trying to work with the electric fence. I put in a new stake, and I was trying to rejig the electric fence. And I had a bit of rubber tire from an old bicycle. I used some of that to position the electric fence. And when Holly went to eat it, I went to get it, and of course Holly pulled back, and she hit me right in the forehead here. There was no big damage, but you can see my glasses are gone. You'd want to, yeah, I think is it? There's something a bit askew, but I need new glasses anyway once I get a few bob together now. Once I get the mobile home done, glasses will be on the list then as well, to get them rechecked and redone, because it's been living in the dark. It's been hard to read, so my eyes have got a little bit lazy. So I need to do that. But the story this morning... Oh, 1 second. What do we have over the week? Only the solstice, the longest day of the year. And it is fantastic. And people would always celebrate... Maybe we'll do that tomorrow evening. With a bonfire. And... now the Christians then took it over with St. John's Night, Bonfire Night. And... kind of, it's an amazing event, because essentially it was a beautiful pagan Celtic festival, and they'd have the bonfires, and they would, run the cattle through. They'd have two bonfires and run the cattle through for good luck for the rest of the year. But I also reckon that could have been for parasites and ticks as well. That the smoke, and I wouldn't say the flame now, but the smoke of the bonfires could kill off a lot of parasites and fleas and ticks and stuff like that. So there was probably a reason behind it. And then the Christians took it over with St. John. I never really understood um, how St. John got the fire going, or what fire he got going, or anything. I never really heard the story. It was just St. John's night. He liked, like, he was a pyromaniac or something. But and then it kind of took a new life again, especially in the cities, where fellas would go off and gather and gather. They'd gather the whole shed here. They'd gather the whole shed here of timber and pallets and stuff like that. And they would have huge bonfires, a little bit like the Halloween. And it would be, they'd have it all set up. And so then the city council in Cork implied they decided to have a festival night and have a proper standard bonfire, which was probably better in a way, really, to keep it under control, that it was never too big. And they had a big bonfire and they had different things going on. I did a puppet show there a couple of years. It was in a park somewhere. Toker, I think it was Toker, I'm not too sure. But it was great and it was really lovely. And again, so the bonfires this time of year is great. But again, as I say, people would have, and even now this time of year, they don't have much time for, I was thinking this recently, for ritual or for doing things. Like, whereas Halloween, there's a lot of customs, there's a lot of things, because people are out in the field. They're cutting silage. At the moment, they're cutting hay. They're trying to get to the bog. Other things are going on. Tourism is here now, so it's the same kind of thing, that people don't have much time for hobbies or religion or rituals and stuff. And the bonfire would suffice. But again, I was thinking, God, maybe I should do more things in a kind of a magical way. And like, the greatest ritual I have is the milking, coming down, feeding the two kids now, and milking the goats. And that in itself is a ritual every morning, every evening. And I must get into the habit of just saying some little thing. What I did last year, because I was milking them outside, I had a little stall, and they would just walk up and I'd sit down on the ground and milk them. And at the end, I'd put my hand in the bucket and just say, "For the fairies," and give them the little bit of oogter, the top of the milk, the froth and stuff, which was a nice thing. And I haven't done it this year because the way the stall is, it's all new. So I have to get back into that habit, really, of giving to the fairies, which is a nice thing. Because even this time of year, even the night of the solstice, you could really feel the magic around the place. Whether it was real, unreal, imagined in my head, you could really feel there was fairies, there was magic, there was plenty abroad, as the man would say. And it really was. And of course, it got me thinking of A Midsummer's Night Dream by Shakespeare. And it's a fantastic story. Now, I was going to hopefully tell you that story today, but I just didn't get time. I know the story and I love the story, but the four people, the four humans, because the story starts off with a group of players who are going to put on a play, and they're gas because they're like, they're kind of like the townsfolk. One is a butcher, one is a shopkeeper, one is a candlestick maker, and that kind of thing. But they're doing a play for the king, and they're all worked up. They have this meeting, and one fella is like, it's about a couple in love. Their play is about a couple in love, and a lion comes along and kills your man, and the girl is all upset. Now, that's basically it. There might be a few more bits and pieces, but they have this like meeting and rehearsal, and one guy is saying, "Do you know, when I come out as the lion, I'm going to be so ferocious and so like a lion, people are going to be scared of me, so scared of me. So I'll have to say that I'm not really a lion, but I'm just George the candlestick maker playing a lion. And your man that's playing the woman whose lover is killed by the lion is like, I'm going to be so upset. I'm going to be so upset and crying and everything that I should tell them that I'm really John the Taylor rather than I think it's Phoebe comes to mind, or Tibby, something anyway like that. But the woman, and I'm so upset. So they go through all this anyway, and Bottom is one of the players. I'm not too sure, does he play the lion? So they're all out anyway, practicing in the woods. And maybe I might be telling you the story. So they're all out rehearsing in the woods, and they're so kind of full of themselves, I suppose, in a very naive and a lovely way, in that sense. So it is lovely. And Bottom is heading off, but he doesn't realise in another section of the woods, the king and queen of the fairies, Oberon and Tishiana, are having a row because you know the way they've changelings and fairies steal children and stuff like that. Well, she stole a very beautiful kind of African prince child, and she was all about the baby. And King Oberon then felt he was kind of left out a little bit. And she was all, that's it, she was minding the baby the whole time, and she wasn't minding her husband, Oberon. And he got very upset. So he got Puck. And I suppose that was the clincher for me when I heard the story. I was like, oh, there's a Puck in it. Well, Puck is King Oberon's head fairy. And I suppose a bit like Pan in a way. So Puck is given the job to find something really hideous in the forest, and he gets this little potion then that when the queen is asleep, he drops 2 little drops on her eyes, and when she wakes up, the first thing she sees, she's going to fall in love with that, and she'll forget all about the little baby. Now maybe your man wanted the baby, maybe the husband wanted the baby, but anyway, she'll forget about the baby and she'll fall madly in love with this hideous creature. So that was all right. Puck went abroad. He was out. He put the drops on the queen's eyes when she was asleep. But he couldn't really find it. Then he came across Bottom. And he said, geez, wouldn't it be great crack if I gave him a donkey's head rather than a human's head? So he gave Bottom a donkey's head. So Bottom was there with a donkey's head now instead of a human head, going around the place, no mirror, so he didn't know what he looked like. And next thing, the queen woke up, and she fell madly in love with Bottom. And she was like, oh my God, you're so gorgeous. Oh my God. And he's like, wow, I'm glad you think so, because I am. I'm glad you realize this, you know. But there's another 4 humans, and these names I get all mixed up because there was kind of like man and woman A and man and woman B, and couple A and couple B. And is there one girl? There's one crowd engaged, and another crowd, she likes him, but he's not mad about her. So Puck then puts the drops on his eyes as a favour to the humans, to be nice to them. He puts the drops in your man's eyes, so when he wakes up, he'll be mad about the girl who's mad about him. But what happens, of course, he turns around in his sleep. This might be all wrong now, but he turns around and he wakes up and he sees the other girl. And he's mad about her. And Puck is like, oh no, man, what have I done? So he's mad about the girl who's mad about her fiance, and he's around after her. And then the girl that's mad after him is all upset. So Puck then finds the girl. He does it again, but he messes up, and they're all in a quandary going on. And meanwhile, and you know them, da 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 da. The Mendelssohn's Marriage Waltz is from that, inspired by that show, because Mendelssohn did a musical, I think, to the music to A Midsummer's Night Dream, and that's where that comes from, where the Queen of the Fairies is going to marry Bottom with the donkey's head, and it's all excited. And anyway, Puck is running around trying to get everybody sorted. Everybody's running after everybody, madly in love because they found him. And it's a complete quandary until I think the King of the Fairies comes back and he says, right, we need to get all this sorted. This has gone a bit crazy altogether. And he puts drops in everybody's eyes, sleeps, and they all wake up and they're in love with who they should be. And the 2 couples go off and get married, and the Queen is back with the King of the Fairies, and Bottom goes home to do the play. And It is a fantastic story. I've read it a few times, and obviously I must read it again. But I love the gist of it, and there is a great film version where Michelle Pfeiffer is the Queen of the Fairies. Rupert Everett is Puck. No, he's not. Is he the King of the Fairies? And your man who was the assistant in The Devil Wears Prada is Puck. That's it. And your one, Felicity Flockhart or something, she played Ally McBeal. She's one of the humans in it. But it really is. It really is. It's a great, and it's that. It really captures what the summer solstice and summer nights are about, when everybody's up, nobody wants to sleep, it's bright outside, it's just great crack, and we all have to be up in the morning. So that is, I don't know, is that my story or not? Because I was going to tell you another story, but we might do that as well. Sure, we could have yarns from the barn, because it is, I'll tell you one. I'll tell you a story now in a minute. But the summer is fantastic. I really do think, and I was just talking during the week as well about great memories of making hay. And I really do think there should be like haymaking courses or a haymaking festival. The only thing is, it is so weather dependent. I think people have cut hay yesterday evening, or they've cut it this evening, and in about 3 or 4 days' time, the bales are made. Because you really need good dry weather, because you're drying out the grass, and it needs to be turned, it needs to be dried, and it's all very important. It's a kind of, so you can't kind of say haymaking festival on Tuesday, the something of June, because it could be lashing rain for 2 days. So it really is, people have to be kind of on the move. But growing up, it used to be so exciting, because the hay would be cut, and then Dad had this huge machine that was called a tosser. And it would turn the hay. It had different gears, I suppose. The horse would pull it along, and it would go around, and it would turn the hay, which is fine. And that had to be kind of kept in their own separate rows. And then when it had been turned a good few times, it might be turned by hand as well with the pike. You shake it up if it was too heavy and stuff. And then came the great day, and Dad would be up and down with this tosser machine and the horse, and he would be gathering it in, gathering it in, gathering it into 2 folds, and then it would be a huge big chunk in the middle of the field. Now, there'd be a few of these lines of chunks, and then the men would start heaping the hay together in pikefuls, huge big pikefuls, and we as kids, or even a man or an adult, would be in there as well, walking in the hay to make it, to flatten it out and get all the air out of it and build it up. And then it was made up into a wine. Some people call them cocks, we call them wines of hay. And the biggest job then was for the youngest, and I was always the youngest, because I was the youngest, and there was there was no more after me. And it was always my job to pull from the bottom of the wines, which was really annoying. I think it was just because I always had to do it. So I kept pulling. You'd have to pull, pull, pull. I should make some little drawings. And pull, pull. So the rain was the big thing. When the rain hit on it and fell down, Jackie was there as well, our neighbour, who'd be with the rake. And he'd be very carefully going around, skinning it, so that when the rain hit, it would just fall down and it wouldn't lodge anywhere. That was the biggest problem. If you just had it all kind of lodging, the hay would stay wet and rot. So you had to keep it. And then, I suppose after another few weeks of that, the wines were brought in with a hay car. An amazing, they had this kind of, it was kind of, they'd pull the wine up on it. There was a kind of a winch. You'd pull the wine up on it. But when doing so, they used to make these huge hay ropes, which are fantastic. And then they'd bring it into the haggart, where everything was kept. And there was loads of privet growing there. And they would hack down the privet and make a nice oblong shape with curved corners. They'd probably do that with stones. And then put the privet to let the air up into the reek of hay then, when they brought all the cocks together and made it up into a big long oblong shape. And that was a great day as well. Oh my God. And then that was all right. That was making the hay was one job. the catering was another job then, and Mom was below, and my sisters and whoever was helping, um, the dinner, and that was a huge. When I think of it, that was a huge undertaking because you were making dinner for maybe 10 men, about that way, and it was kind of funny in a way because the men were kind of connoisseurs. They were kind of critiques because the dinner had to be just right. If there was something wrong with the food, there'd be something said. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of funny in a way because the men would all be kind of, oh, I don't care, I'm rough out or anything. And be like, oh, the spuds are so wet. So there was a big kind of pressure on to put a good dinner on for the lads as well. And I remember I heard a story in, I think it was up around North Cork, but somebody arrived one of the first days back in the 70s, I suppose, or 60s, with a motor car. So they sat, they left the motor car there, they left the doors open, so nobody's going to rob it. And he went off to help with the hay, and they were all up the hay. And my friend's mother and his aunt were just getting the dinner ready and everything. And they said, we'll just sit into the car. We'll just sit in and see what it's like. So they sat into the car and they put on the seatbelts. And they thought this was, oh, they look at the seatbelts, and they clicked it in and they clicked it in. And they couldn't get out. They couldn't figure out how to loosen the seatbelts. So the men went away working all morning, and they came down for their dinner, presuming 1 o'clock was dinner time, expecting a huge big dinner ready for them. And they were the two women still in the car, couldn't open the seatbelts, but I think they had a great day of laughing, and they had a very late dinner. Hello, who's coming around the corner? It's great, I can see shadows moving. See, we do have a kind of the wind is coming up. So all the goats are up in the upper field. There's a few down the strand at the bottom, but you can feel the wind coming up. But that's the hay. God, it just seems so fun. It just seems so, and of course then when Dad had made these big rows that we'd make the cocks from, as we got older then, we were left rake the field. So we just kept going around with the horse. So you couldn't go wrong, really. But you would rake up any bits of hay that were left over. And that was a great, because you were up high on this machine. You were guiding the horse. And you might do that for a year or two. And then you'd be left, start bringing it in a little bit, because you'd have to bring one row in and then another row in. It might be every second go, do you know what I mean? You had to... there was a skill to it as well, because you had to bring one in, and you'd gathered maybe two together, and another two together, and another two together. And then you'd have to go back in and bring one closer, and the other one closer, and the other one closer. And then it'd be like, there'd be two together then, so the last one, so you'd be building up the whole time. But it was really, and I suppose that's the way I learned to learn, was by doing it slowly, like an apprenticeship. It's so sad that they don't really do apprenticeships anymore, that it's all this kind of paperwork and bookwork, and nobody knows if people have actually have learnt what they're supposed to have learnt. They get a cert to say they've it done, and that's enough. That's enough for the insurance company, but there's nobody saying, yeah, he's definitely, there's no kind of practical exam, I think, and it's sad really, because that's really, I think a lot of people learn like that. They learn from doing, from watching, from seeing, from doing the small steps up to the big steps, but actually doing, because it was the year ahead depended on making the hay and making it well, rather than just throwing it together. It really depended on the cattle would live or die if they had the hay or not. So everything was done very carefully and very well. So people learned what to do. And again, like, nobody would go near the reek, only Jackie with his rake, making sure everything was completely 100% straight. There was no like, I want to do it. Okay, love, you go at it. You know, that was Jackie's job. You can pull from the bottom if you want, but there was no if you want though. But but there was something very nostalgic, as I say, about that. And then the balers came in, and the bales, so they're quite handy as well. I suppose as well, there's less room for error then, because if something goes wrong in a bale, it's just the bale that's rotten. Whereas the Rikahe, when everything came in, it hated. I think that's what they said. Hated if there was moisture trapped in there, and of course, rinnes darúd ar an obair níos crúthe on obair níos crúthe. The hardest work of all, I nearly forgot, was picking the capogues out of the hay and the gracedons, because capogues are dock leaves plants, and the gracedons then are the ragwort. Now, we didn't have much ragwort in our fields, but they're supposed to be quite poisonous when they're dried out in the hay, and they can cause liver failure. So you do have to pick them out. Now, I don't think they're as poisonous when they're growing, but it's when they're dried and in the hay that's the real problem. But the capogues as well had to be taken out, the dock leaves, and they were long streaks of misery, God bless them, because you'd be around the field picking and picking and picking and picking, and you'd put them over somewhere. And then my dad, and there'd be thousands. I think did somebody say there's like 30,000 seed heads or seeds on a dock leaf plant, and they're just like tea leaves. And as a child, you just love tearing your hands along. You'd have them and you'd blow them in the wind. Well, you'd be picking all those up next year out of the hay. And we had the Strand field, of course, down here. Oh, I'll have to get out of the barn. It's not as breezy now. Oh, excuse me. There we go. So we'd have the Strand field. I'd say though but there was no Rahanuk. So you'd have to walk around this field. How many times? How many row of hay? Like you'd have to walk every step of this field, picking out capogues and stuff. And oh my God, you'd be so sick of it. And then one year, we gathered them all. My dad gathered them all in the middle of the field. Hello. Look at this fur. It's like you're all thrown out. It's like you're all just thrown out. They're all bammed out in the heat. Look at Jolene. She loves it. This is all their vitamin D now. Yeah. I don't know about these. Shush. I don't know about these lads here. I don't know if people are chatting or not. But I might... Look at this. I might shear the backs of his legs, apparently somebody was saying. So I'll have a little bit, because they're quite matted. Good man, Druid. How are we all doing? There's Lamal. I didn't realise this was so sheltery here now. This is a real sun trap. Look at Jolene. She's just like soaking it up. Jolene's coat is very thin compared to the rest. I'm noticing that. And I think I might have to, hopefully I'll have electricity soon enough that I'd love to make a little coat for her for the winter. Just to keep, you know, when you see the rest of their coats, now maybe it'll thicken up in the winter, but she's got a very thin coat compared to Saoirse now. You know, yeah, look at you lads, you're all thrown out. It is beautiful. So I think Midsummer's Night Dream is your story, and the haymaker's jig. And people would say that you're a haymaker. So we're all good. Look at this for contentment, complete contentment. I better get a few buckets of fresh water now set up, and we can drink those during the day. Look at Susan and Unity. Look at she. Now, I was saying that I might put Unity up with the yearlings because she's quite big, but might hold on another bit. Yes. Okay, everybody, have a lovely week. Greetings from Yarn in the Barn, and we'll talk to you next week. I'll be there every morning around 8, 20 past 8. It's so hard because if I come down, I'm early and I get stuff done, and it's kind of getting more systematic now, so it's a bit easier. And then I have to get back and go to work, but work isn't too bad this week. This week I have to get a puppet show together, which I haven't done in a very long time, and it's a bit exciting. So, Slán and Ish, thank you everybody for tuning in, for watching. Please leave a comment, please like and share and do all the business. Talk to you very soon. Slán and Ish, gach duine.